3 in the morning. Maria woke up with the feeling that someone was watching her. It wasn't the first time, since her ex-husband had died in an accident after a terrible fight between them. She had felt a heavy presence at home, objects falling on their own, constant nightmares, a sense of being punished. "He's taken revenge on me," she told me, tears in her eyes. "I said terrible things to him before he died. Now he's back to make me pay." This story repeats itself thousands of times around the world. People terrified, convinced that spirits of the dead are seeking revenge on them. But is that really what happens? Or is there something much deeper and liberating behind these phenomena? Since childhood, we've been bombarded with stories of vengeful ghosts, horror movies, urban legends, haunted tales. Our culture has built a true arsenal of spiritual fears that keep us trapped in a distorted vision of what happens after death. The first step to understanding the truth is to recognize how fear works. When we are afraid, our perception changes drastically. We begin to interpret normal events as supernatural. A door slamming becomes a spiritual manifestation. A strange feeling becomes an evil presence. I went through this myself. After my grandmother died, I started having strange experiences at home. Flickering lights, unexplained noises, a constant sense of being watched. For weeks, I lived in terror, thinking she was angry with me for something I had done, until I realized something fundamental. All these phenomena began exactly when my guilt over my last moments with her intensified. They weren't external manifestations, they were projections of my own internal state. Here's the first truth that will shock many. Evolved spirits do not take revenge. Revenge is an emotion rooted in ego, attachment, and the illusion of separation. When a consciousness truly transcends the physical plane, it does not carry those dense energies with it. So what are these presences so many people report? There are a few real possibilities. States of stuck consciousness. Sometimes, when someone dies with deep attachments, anger, or unresolved trauma, part of their energy can remain stuck in the earthly plane. But this isn't revenge, it's confusion, unprocessed pain. It's like an energetic echo, not a conscious entity with malicious intentions, our own energetic creations. This is far more common than we think. Our guilt, remorse, and fear create thought forms so intense they seem alive. We literally materialize our own hauntings. I remember a case I followed. Roberto was convinced his dead business partner was sabotaging his company. Equipment failures, lost contracts, strange accidents. "It is Chowar taking revenge because I didn't help his family after he died," he said. The truth. Roberto was so consumed by guilt that he unconsciously sabotaged his own projects. His conflicted mind created the exact situations he feared as punishment. Let's understand how this really works. In the energetic universe, there's a fundamental law. We attract what we resonate with. If you're vibrating in guilt, fear, or remorse, you will attract experiences that reflect those energies. It's not that the spirit of the dead person is chasing you. It is that your own energy is creating a magnetic field for experiences that confirm your worst fears. Imagine your psyche as a radio station. If you're tuned into the frequency of guilt, you'll pick up every broadcast confirming that you deserve punishment. And even more impressively, you'll unconsciously create those experiences to validate your inner belief. Anna came to me after months of spiritual attacks. Her mother-in-law had died hating her, and now Anna felt cursed. Health problems, household accidents, constant fights with her husband. When we began working on her deeper emotions, we discovered Anna carried massive guilt for never reconciling with her mother-in-law. Her subconscious was creating the exact punishments she thought she deserved. Not everything is psychological projection. There are indeed real energetic phenomena. The difference is understanding their nature. Real case of spiritual obsession. Carlos began displaying behaviors completely out of character after a friend addicted to drugs died. Sudden aggression, urges to use substances, something he had never been interested in. Abrupt personality changes. Here, it wasn't revenge. The spirit of the friend, still confused and attached to earthly vices, was unconsciously influencing Carlos. not out of malice, but out of energetic proximity and lack of spiritual clarity. The solution, it wasn't exorcism or spiritual battle. It was dialogue, understanding, and helping the spirit recognize his new condition and move forward on his evolutionary path. Case of mental projection was convinced her deceased ex-boyfriend was pulling her to die too. She felt presences, heard whispers, had self-destructive impulses. The truth had never processed her grief. A part of her subconscious wanted to reunite with him, and this manifested as sensations of being called to the other side. It wasn't him pulling, she was wanting to go. The vast majority of spiritual revenge is actually our own unresolved psychological ghosts coming to life. When we do something that contradicts our deepest values, our psyche goes into conflict. The guilty part creates an inner judge that punishes us, and this judge can be so powerful that it feels external, as if the dead themselves were demanding repayment. Think of it this way. If you betrayed the trust of someone who has died, your mind can create a ghost of betrayal so vivid that you literally feel that person as presence accusing you. But that ghost isn't the real spirit of the person. It's your own unresolved guilt taking on a seemingly external form. Marcos told me how, after his mother's death, he began hearing her voice scolding him every night. "You never visited me," the voice said. "You only thought about yourself." He was sure her spirit was tormenting him. The reality? Marcos carried deep guilt for distancing himself from his family in her last years. The voice he heard was his own self-criticism, projected onto the mother figure. Now we come to the practical part. How to really protect yourself. First, understand that the best spiritual protection is emotional cleansing. When you resolve your guilt, fears, and traumas, you automatically rise out of the frequency that attracts negative experiences. What really works? Brutal self-awareness. Stop running from your real emotions. If you feel haunted, ask yourself, what guilt am I carrying? What trauma haven't I resolved? Forgiveness, especially of yourself. Most spiritual revenge ends when a person truly forgives themselves for what they did or didn't do. Dialogue, not war. If you feel there's a real presence, don't fight it. Talk, explain yourself, apologize if necessary. Often what looks like revenge is simply a request for acknowledgement or closure. Energy, elevation. Practice gratitude, meditation, acts of love. When you raise your energy, you automatically leave the frequency where these experiences occur. What doesn't work and can make things worse. Rituals of spiritual battle rooted in fear. Magical objects without internal work. Running away from the problem without resolving the emotional cause, feeding drama and spent a fortune on spiritual cleansings because she thought her dead father was sabotaging her love life. Nothing worked because the problem wasn't spiritual, it was emotional. She carried the belief that she didn't deserve happiness because she had fought with her father before he died. Only when she processed that guilt and forgave herself did the sabotage stop. Let me tell you 3 cases that perfectly illustrate these truths. The case of Sandra. After her son died in an accident, Sandra began having nightmares where he appeared furious, blaming her for not preventing the tragedy. She lived terrified, thinking his spirit was angry at her. The transformation happened when Sandra realized those nightmares were her own maternal guilt manifesting. She forgave herself for not being a perfect mother, and the nightmares stopped. More than that, she began dreaming of her son in peace, sending her love. The case of Fernando. After his brother's death, with whom he had quarreled years earlier, Fernando went through a terrible streak of bad luck. Accidents, financial losses, health problems. He was sure it was spiritual revenge. The truth. Fernando was unconsciously punishing himself for the unresolved fight. When he held a forgiveness ceremony as king, his brothers, for pardon and forgiving himself, his life began to come back together. The case of she constantly felt the presence of her abusive ex-husband who had died. She believed he was still trying to control and haunt her, even after death. What we discovered had internalized her husband's critical, controlling voice so deeply that she continued sabotaging herself even after his death. It wasn't he, his spirit was the inner abuser she had developed as a survival mechanism. Here's the truth that can change your life. In the vast majority of cases, you are not being pursued by vengeful spirits. You are being haunted by your own unresolved emotions. And do you know what that means? That you have more power than you imagine. If the problem were truly a powerful, malicious spirit from beyond coming to destroy your life, you would be a helpless victim. But if the problem is your own mental and energetic creations, then you can change them. You can resolve the guilt that fuels these experiences, forgive yourself for past mistakes, elevate your energetic frequency, redefine your beliefs about death and spirituality. If you are going through this type of experience, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what guilt am I carrying? What trauma have I not resolved? What forgiveness do I need to give to others? And most importantly, to myself. Most vengeful spirits disappear at the moment you make peace with yourself. This doesn't mean denying the existence of the spiritual plane. It means understanding that evolved spirits are busy with far more important things than chasing people on Earth. They are moving forward on their evolutionary journeys, learning, growing, loving. If you feel a negative presence, it's far more likely to be your own psychological shadow, some confused state of consciousness that needs help, not war. A thought form created by your intense emotions in every case. The solution is not fear or battle, it's love, forgiveness, and understanding. The next time you feel haunted, instead of panicking, ask yourself, what is this experience trying to show me about myself? What healing is it asking for? You may discover that your greatest spiritual enemy was, in fact, your best teacher in disguise. And when you learn the lesson and make peace with yourself, you'll discover something beautiful. The spiritual world is not against you. It is and always has been on your side. It's not the dead who haunt us, it's our own unforgiven guilt. When we make peace with ourselves, even the ghosts turn into angels.